Can you still hear me right now? All right. I got you muted though. I'm going to stop talking. Welcome to the Dan Dillman Live Podcast, where we question the history and mysteries of the past while exploring people and stories from around the world. Join us as we delve into everything from hidden treasures and ancient secrets to the unexplained phenomena capturing our imaginations. Ruben, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan, thank you for having me on your show. It's been a while since we connected, but we worked a lot together, didn't we, a while back at various conferences that you had put together. So
Oh,
thank you for having me on your radio show.
you got it. Thank you, brother. Even though we may not always be, having coffee or researching or planning together, we are brothers from another mother forever, for always.
Exactly.
Want to give a quick shout out. Ice Snot says, hello, Dan and Ruben. And what is N sound? Is that no sound or nice sound? Let us know, because hopefully Ruben and I hear each other. Hopefully you hear us. Audio good now. Okay, wonderful, perfect. Could you not hear me talking at all?
I couldn't hear you in your introduction.
You could. Okay, all right, good. All right, so to get started, I'm recently sharing some recent news, breaking news, recent news, and there's two things that I wanted to share with people, and I'll show an image to it later. But basically in March of this year, March 24th, I believe, there was a blue spiral that appeared over Europe. And this blue spiral was moving across Europe. I mean, it was seen over multiple countries and states. And of course, the news reported this spiral as being, a failed rocket that spun out of control. Now, I don't quite buy that. My theory is that it's a portal, or some form of portal that is opening up, and that we're having these interdimensional, ships or beings coming into our dimension. That's a theory. I can't prove that to anyone right now, but I want to draw a connection between what just happened and in 2012. And I'm sure you remember this, Ruben, when Obama was flying, I think it was to Norway, to receive his Nobel Peace Prize. There was this similar blue spiral that appeared in the skies over Norway as he was landing. Now, the news reported then as well that this was a rocket, a Russian rocket at the time, that spun out of control and created this blue spiral. But, if it was a Russian rocket shot in the airspace of the President of the United States of America, flying through that airspace, I would imagine that would be an act of war, or at least an international incident. So that doesn't fly with me either. And, where all these people were landing. So it's just interesting to me, in the connection. Do you have any comments on those sightings, or any info?
You're going to be showing those to the audience.
Yeah, let me pull that up right now. By the way, let's see if
that has been, we've come across that, as far as you mentioned.
So there's the blue spiral right there. Can you see that?
Yes, I can. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So, and this was, almost, carbon copy, duplicate of what happened in 2012 as well. Yeah. So, to me, I think it's much more mysterious than what, authorities are leading us on to.
And that depends too. When you start receiving explanations, and again, there's so many out there, and sometimes depends on the source as well, where you might be able to get more information as far as the rocket launch itself. Of course, this was in another country, and not everything is as transparent as it is here so far.
Right.
But you do get these different explanations. I've seen some footage of missiles going haywire, and then they start spinning, and either they're launched from Vandenberg, and they have almost a similar effect, or something really quite unusual that is seen in different parts of the United States, as well as Mexico too. And but when we could track down the exact launch time and everything, that kind of gives an explanation. But still, there's still mysteries still out there. And,
and the connection, something else that I'll throw in there is these spirals are very similar to petroglyphs and pictographs that are all throughout the Americas and South America. And so, when you have these images, I don't think that they're just by coincidence, that they're the same spirals. I believe the natives were witnessing these same things in the airspace. So unless there were rockets failing at the time the natives were experiencing these anomalies in the sky, I think there's a case and some evidence that says, hey, this is possibly something different. Not to say that there aren't failed rockets that can create things like this, but when we start bringing in other evidence from thousands, hundreds and thousands of years ago that have these same geometric shapes that look just like these spirals that we're witnessing, and the color blue as well.
It reminds me of the here that happened here locally, Dan, more than 120 years ago, when we had the great airship sightings that were being observed by people here in the Bay Area back in 1896. They were seeing these strange lights and these almost structured craft, and people were saying they were zeppelins, but we didn't have zeppelins flying. We didn't have airplanes flying. We didn't have UFO. We didn't have UFO investigators, and people were doing the best they can to describe them. And fortunately, it was newspaper reporters from all the various newspapers in the Bay Area that started to write about these sightings and the different incidents, and that was the record. And then the phenomena of these airships continued back until 1897 in other parts of the United States in the Midwest. So, yeah, and when you start looking at these cases and the frequency of these cases that were being observed back then, yeah, as you mentioned, we can go back thousands of years, and you have fortunately the indigenous people at that time were able to record it, paint it, and then you could then compare that to other similar connections like what you're doing, and sometimes, yeah, there's some really unique experiences. People or the depiction of beings, and they're wearing helmets or not, or some sort of suits, but they look different than your normal person.
Than your normal native wearing some deer skin.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I love that. That ancient astronaut connection as well, and
yeah, yeah.
I know that you've been involved in your research as well.
Yeah, I want to bring up really quick Robert Lawton. Thanks for joining us. I think that is the Blind Bowman, if I'm not mistaken. He says, "Hello, UFO, great topic. Don't you think it's funny that these are the same color as the blue orbs that have been witnessed?" I do. I think it's more than a coincidence. I also know that color blue, that beautiful color blue, resonates with me and always has, because I have actually, seen spiritual beings of that color. So it's just that color just really resonates with me. Matter of fact, one of my logos for my logo for Exalt, the X is that color blue. I want to bring up really quick another piece of recent news, and then we're diving into everything Ruben Uriarte and your latest research and all that stuff. But I just want to bring this up because it's interesting. It came across my timeline, and I thought it was amazing what came out of this man's mouth. And it was a video of Trump. And I guess that the news had asked him about if he was worried about if China would attack or Iran. I don't know quite who. I think it was from my buddy Jeff Gonzalez's timeline, and I seen it on my timeline. And Trump tells the news that, oh, no, we're not worried about anyone attacking us. The United States of America has technology that nobody has ever seen before, that nobody else has. And no, we're not worried about it. No one will be messing with us because we have this advanced technology that nobody has ever seen before. And I just thought that was really interesting coming from the president of the United States, revealing, he didn't say what the technology was, but acknowledging that the U.S. has advanced technology that the world has never seen before, that they don't want us to basically pull out to defend ourselves, or, Did you hear anything about that? Did you see that or hear about that?
Not exactly, but normally that really presents a challenge, Dan, because a lot of these sightings that have occurred over the years, you always get a response from the Pentagon or some facet of or an agency within the military or intelligence agency. They will say, well, it's classified. We can't share anything, and then end of story right there, right?
Right.
And or um, but it tends to make you believe, okay, so it is something technical, or it's either us or an adversary that has a similar technology. But we still have to be very what's the word, skeptical in terms of the information that's being presented, because remember recently we had the drones that were being sighted over on the East Coast, and these things were stopping air operations, airports, especially military bases. And then the explanation was, oh, it was the FAA. They were testing these drones, or people were mistaking them for conventional airplanes and that. Um, then there were a lot of questions as why would if the FAA was doing this, why would they allow or interfere with air operations at nearby bases? And it brought
Right.
brought up a lot of questions. And then you get into this whole issue. Well, how much do we accept? Obviously, it's going to be we have to do some more um, investigations and not just accept what's being said. So it's a mixed bag. Um, yeah, we know. I mean, that's what other scientists, other CEOs of different aerospace industries have said something similar, or they've been quoted. Yeah, we have something very superior, and it could be. And then again, the big story, or the big more of a shift and focus has been, well, how much of this is actually coming from us versus non-human intelligence? These there are things out there that are being recorded by either our pilots or the equipment that's being seen. I mean, we have some really sophisticated stuff out there um, that is capturing. It's just more and more is being released. There were some more videos, I believe, are being released through different sources on these different sightings. Corbell and George Knapp,
Right.
they've been showing some of their
Should I share?
recent.
Should I share some
Yeah,
of those? Okay, let's do that. Let's go
yeah, please.
share. Let's do this. Bam. Let's share screen. I should be able to. Let's go. Oh, so here we go. Here is. Can you see that?
Yeah, you see like a pyramid or a tetrahedron. Yeah, I
Exactly.
remember.
Yep. So exactly what you were just talking about.
Yeah, these things they were following a group of Navy ships over in Southern California, and they observed these things flying over them, and they were captured with the cameras, and a lot of other strange things. This is really interesting. What's the object out in the distance? Does it show anything?
Yeah, and this one is this object.
Yeah.
This object here that was captured recently as well from a pilot.
From what I understand, Dan, these pilots carried their own cameras, their own iPhones. We're taking pictures of uh, of these objects.
Yeah, which is just amazing, especially with the quality, with the iPhone and the quality of the cameras and other smartphones. That's why I just think it's amazing that we're getting these images. Now, this, of course, this is the TikTok, I believe, um, spacecraft that was also caught by a Navy uh, jet fighter. And
You know what I find fascinating, Dan, is that I, I I don't know much about or how these sensors work, but in the sense that now when you're flying, if your plane picks up an object, well, so will the other objects. So will the other planes in your group, and so you try to compare, what's being recorded from these sophisticated sensors that are on the airplanes or on ships that are tracking these items. And yeah, also I remember the, the pilots that are flying off the East Coast. They have ongoing encounters with these objects. Even what look like what I find fascinating are like these cube-shaped objects with a sphere inside, and these things are able to fly and
amazing.
very fast. And and it's not kites or anything. It's not because there's the winds are like either more than 100 miles an hour, and they're just hovering, not moving, and they remain there for hours. Yeah, that's the thing. You only get so much airtime in a jet, and you have to return back for fuel eventually. So their loitering time of observing these things are only limited. Yet these objects are remaining motionless, and they're not balloons or whatever other explanations. So yeah, I would say that we're going to be learning a lot more over a period of time. Uh, I've seen a big shift recently. We have a number more whistleblowers. That we have the congressional hearings. So who ever thought that we would be having congressional hearings and all these really interesting questions that are being raised?
Yeah, dreams come true for us because going back to the old UFO Expo days, and
Mm-hmm.
going way back to those days where all of us who were there, we knew what was going on. And so I think it's amazing that Congress is having those hearings, because it opens the door in minds to so many other people who used to call us conspiracy theorists, or
Yeah.
tinfoil hat wearing guys, and now the cat is out of the bag. So yeah, I'm with you. I was going to bring up the congressional hearings and ask you about that. I'm glad you led into it.
Yes. I'm reading a book, and I highly recommend it. It's a book right here called Imminent Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. And it was written by Luis Elizondo. And it's a great book because it gives you an understanding of these gentlemen that are keeping this information secret, of course. The general public doesn't know uh, about what's going on. But all the different conflicts that are happening where you have certain groups within these agencies that don't want this information released. They either say it's demonic, um, or that we might create, or maybe the American public isn't ready to accept it. Yeah, I find it really unique. We were talking about Trump, and he had mentioned his statement about the technology. But it's interesting that now there's a task force that's set up by Congressman Luna and a couple of other congressmen and senators that are involved in developing, releasing this information out, and that are unique. Going back to the JFK assassination, but in there's going to, I believe, there'll be a focus for UFOs again. But I thought that getting back to these congressional hearings and the amount of witnesses that we've had over the years, and the fact that we have more people from the intelligence community out there, people that were in the military, um, it's and then they're describing what happened to them. Many of them were under oath not to release information, but gradually they're trying to find protection of these whistleblowers. So
Right.
I think we're going to find some real interesting information down the road,
Yeah,
especially.
and let me bring up just in case there's some people watching now or in the future who watch this podcast. Let's talk about really quick. Let's just mention some of the things that have been said. So David Krush, a former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer who is a whistleblower now, testified that he has engaged in a multi-decade program to retrieve and reverse engineer UAPs. His testimony included claims that the government has recovered non-human biologics and craft, indicating advanced technologies not of this world. That's crazy talk to a normal, to a normal person who has said that UFOs are BS, forever. But this is a whistleblower who is who is a U.S. Air Force intelligence officer. He also goes on to say, and I want to get your reactions and comments to this stuff, that the U.S. government has likely been aware of this non-human activity since the 1930s. Highlighting longstanding government knowledge of extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings.
Yeah.
It also, he also then goes on to say that Krush hinted at the existence of interdimensional entities interacting with Earth. He claims and suggests that the encounters may not be extraterrestrial of nature, and once again I'll say it again, in nature, but could also be beings from different dimensions, thereby broadening the scope of what is publicly understood about UAPs and their origins. I mean, what is your research or response to that? MUFON's research and response to that? Where are we with this?
Well, there is. It seems like a shift in consciousness as the wording using that word, because back then, where MUFON was back in the '70s, was it was more of a nuts and bolts type of organization. I mean, that's the researchers back then were just focusing on the actual craft that would either be um, that just reason that was involved where there was a retrieval team that was able to gather the wreckage of these down craft. But when it came to talking about the occupants and who are they and where they're from, that was a whole other ball game right there. And gradually, we move on as an organization, and also with the researchers that were out there looking into this, had started to present a lot of interesting information on that. And it gets even more strange because this phenomenon is not just dealing with the ETs and that we have an unknown out there and a whole other aspect of the paranormal. Although we research and look focus on related UAP, they're using that wording, unidentified
Yeah.
phenomena. To me, I still if it's UFO, it's a UFO, but I can understand the politics behind that. But going back to the crashes, my good friend Noe Torres and I have researched several down UFO cases. One of them was the Koyame incident, and this was an event that happened in 1974, more than 50 years ago in August, where a plane collided with a UFO over an area in Chihuahua, Mexico, and the object crashed and it was retrieved by the Mexican military, and while they were doing this, they were being observed by spy satellites and CIA. They were being watched, but something really different, something really out of the ordinary happened, and the Mexican soldiers that were involved in retrieving the plane wreckage as well as the downed UFO um, were exposed to something, whether it was radiation or some biological agent. But they started to fall down on the ground. They were out, and the bodies of these soldiers were being uh, observed by these reconnaissance aircraft as well as by spy satellites. So a UFO, a retrieval team was launched out of Fort Bliss in Texas. These were a group of helicopters that flew to the location. The American soldiers wore protective suits. So that was a clue right there. They
Wow.
were protected. They knew what because they'd done this before.
Right.
And the fact that they flew to the site and they were able to take the craft and haul it on by into one of these large Sea Stallion helicopters and fly back across the border in an area called close to Van Horn, Texas. In that area there, they were able to then later take it to other military installations. But it's an interesting case. And we just did the groundwork. We connected with other researchers. We looked at documents. The History Channel was it was this is quite interesting. I need to share it with you how I got involved in the down route on the crash retrieval uh, research. Was that at that time when I was involved as a liaison for MUFON with a number of Mexican investigators. And there was a group called OMIFO, which is the Organization of UFO Researchers, UFO Investigators in Mexico. Um, the History Channel wanted to do a series or a documentary on what was going on in Mexico, and I connected them with a number of my friends and people that I knew. Then I find out that History Channel was starting to do a series of focuses of UFO crash retrievals in other countries, in Brazil, UK, as well as some cases here in the U.S. And they were extremely interested in the Mexico's Roswell, is how we named it. And so I was able to have a part in that and did some narration about the case itself. And then my friend Noe Torres, at the time I didn't know him, but he saw the documentary, and then he sent me an email and he said, "Hey, how about I'm interested in what's going on. I'm investigating these strange cases that have been occurring here in Texas, and how would you be interested in collaborating, putting a book together?" And I said, "Yeah, why not? I mean, that's fascinating." Well, Dan, that opened up a whole. I mean, that changed my life in a sense. That, uh, working with Noe as a top-notch investigator, and plus he's written several books already. He's a baseball fanatic, and so he's written books on baseball as well as
It's
mystery.
UFOs.
Yeah, then we got into it, but I did not know about these other crashes that have occurred. We did a follow-up of research on UFOs that collided near the border near Laredo, Texas, back in 1948. We did another one that involved the actual pilot, the fighter pilot that was following this UFO that crashed on the other side of the
Wow.
Rio Grande River. And it was amazing meeting with him and all the stuff that he shared with us. So we wrote up another book called the Other Roswell, and it was about the experience that Colonel Willingham, who was great, I mean, just a great witness, and shared with us about what had occurred on that day. And briefly, what happened was he went back. He was flying and he followed the object and he saw it crash, and he was running low on fuel, and he asked to get permission to go back to base so he could, because he was short on fuel. He was able to, when he landed, he was able to get a small little airplane, a small airplane, and it was called an Aeronica back then. It was a little small plane that he and uh, another Air Force technician joined him. They flew back to the crash site, and when he arrived, he flew his plane right onto the Mexican side of the border and landed near the wreckage. What he noticed were that the wreckage was surrounded by Mexican military,
Wow.
and he Willingham was in his uniform, and when he approached some of the military officials there, they said that they were waiting for someone from the United States Air Force to arrive. Right? Which that opened up a whole other interesting um, aspect of this research, because it showed all the different types of cooperation that was occurring with our countries, between Mexico and the United States. Or then it, of course, you have all these different agencies that are involved, and you also have these other agencies that are involved with other governments, where crashes have also occurred in South America and other parts of the world.
Now,
So,
let's talk about, I want to bring this up. It's a theory of mine. It's
mhm.
hard for me to believe that these crashes are super advanced technology, whether interdimensional or capable of traversing, the vast amount of space and time to get to Earth, that are just going to crash. My theory, and one of my theories, as an ancient mystery theorist, is that any crashed UFOs, in my opinion, are planned. In other words, whoever they are, have said, this is how we don't interfere with their society, in the sense of coming down and saying, hello, everyone, but that they, help to advance us in technology, or sharing, letting us know that they're here. I don't know. What is your thought on that? Because to me, I believe that we're having crashes. I believe something's crashing. I believe it's advanced technology, but it just kind of eludes me to believe that their advanced technology failed.
Exactly. I mean, no, those are the questions that are there. It's like, how can someone from advanced technology result in getting um, into an accident, and not only that, but leave behind evidence, dead bodies of aliens, and then perhaps one that's alive. There's been a whole series of different um, events. I was looking at some data, and from 1940 to through up to 1978 or whatever, there are like over 40 crashes, and that's just quite a number of events. Um, so the question that rises, well, why did it crash? And then there was some research done that some of these saucers, most of those objects were the typical good old fashioned flying saucers that were being seen back then.
Mhm.
And now, of course, there's a variety of different shapes in that. But supposedly, we had our radars interfered with their flight systems, and there were a number of crashes that occurred, this came out of some documentation with the FBI, and that there were several crashes that occurred, and that they're finding there was a connection with the powerful radar that we've had, that possibly might have been the reason why we were having these crashes. Now, whether they're intentionally shot down or whatever, we're obviously that's a whole other can of worms there, because if you are going to be shooting at something highly technical, there's going to be repercussions. And back especially in the 50s, from 1950 to 1950 through 1956, we lost close to 200 approximately 200 pilots, aviators. There were a number of crashes, some mysterious crashes that were going on. There was a great book, a really interesting book written by Frank Ficino called "Shoot 'Em Down." That was the order back then, to go and be aggressive and start shooting these things. And as a result, a lot of our pilots never came back. Nowadays, I think they're being much more careful, especially when they're out there observing these. They were basically now, as you've seen, pilots taking pictures of these objects, or
Observe and report. Don't
don't
yeah.
shoot. I
Man.
mean, yeah, it really is fascinating. But beside all this technical stuff, I have some real interesting um, sketches that I like to share with you and the audience that I think you might find interesting.
Yeah,
Because
please.
one of the things that we do is we interview the witnesses to get their description of what happened. What did it look like? What happened to them? When did it occur? What time? Try to get as much. What was the weather like? What did you think this thing had happened? We haven't even talked about the whole abduction scenario. That's a whole other interesting.
Right. Well, you only said we have an hour, but I'm willing to talk
Uh,
about it all.
we can come back. Yeah, if you like, I could always come back. We can do a part two if you like.
Great.
Um, but what I wanted to share with you is sometimes um, we use sketches. We'll ask the uh, witness to describe what it looked like. And this is something that happened. This is a picture of a disc, and this happened over in Dublin, nearby from where we live, Dan.
So
And
Dublin,
this sighting,
California.
Dublin, California, Dublin, yes. And
Lift it up just a
this
little bit higher. Lift it up just a. There we go.
uh, this happened in November 2004, where this object was seen between two busy freeways, 680 and the 580 freeway. And the witness was exiting, and then when she went down the exit ramp, she looked over and saw this strange object just floating. And then she thought that, man, yeah, that's pretty good advertisement for the car dealership. And and but then she noticed that this thing was not really one of those balloons, and she freaked out, and she started to uh, she got on her phone and cell phone and called her daughter, and then she was trying to figure out how to use the cell phone, the camera, to take a picture of it. And all of a sudden, the object just went away.
Wow.
And what I find very interesting is that was the only report. We didn't get reports of from other people. Maybe they saw it and just ignored it. But the witness was very, very credible. She worked for as a high executive at some laser technology lab. So she had a lot of credibility. I mean, why would she want to make up something like this? And so we had a gentleman by the name of Tom Akris, who was a retired police officer for San Jose, and he also did forensic artwork. And so he got together with her, and they met in my home, and they spent several hours. It was what really amazing was her telling them, no, it was this color, was this color, was that color, and so this is what came up. What I find also what's really interesting is that we have Lawrence Livermore Lab not that far away,
Right.
within 5 miles or so,
And
and
Sandia National
Sandia,
Labs.
yeah. So maybe that might be a connection. But the the description or the artwork is very important because this is part of the evidence that's being collected. Well, well, this happened in 2004, but in 1992 there was another interesting event that happened um, where another gentleman that worked in the high tech industry was also abducted, and so the investigator spoke with him, and so he got the police forensic artist involved in this. But mind you, this is 1992, and the case that I just showed you happened in 2004. So
Gotcha.
anyway, he he got together with the witness, and can you see that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so the witness described what he saw, and the artist, Tom Macris, the forensic artist, did a rendition of what the witness observed. Man, when I see this, man, it gives me sometimes the shivers. I don't know if I would want to run into something like this, Dan. But the fact that man, it was quite interesting. And then they did a side profile. How's that? Can you see that?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I
Interesting.
don't. It's interesting. We don't have the photographs per se because many times people see something quite interesting, will try to grab their camera or forget about their camera because they're so caught up at the moment, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
happened. I've already had a number of cases where people say, "Yeah, I never even thought about using my camera. I was afraid to take my eyes off of it, or then it would leave." But then there might be maybe the camera may not function correctly for whatever reason, that or maybe some sort of interference. But that's always been some of the issues. So the drawings are just as valuable, and like I shared with you here, that kind
Yeah.
of compares the story. So
Amazing. I'm a victim of having a sighting and not having the time, or even because I was so enthralled by what I was seeing that by the time I decided to remember to get my phone out, it's already too late, gone or on its way out, and I catch the tail end of it. So it happens to the best of us, even those who know better.
yeah, and I'm no different. It could happen to me too. I have had my own interesting sightings when I was a child. That's why I got involved in this. Dan was I think I was 5 or 6 or years old, and we lived in Oakland, and I was near a school ground. We had a small playground, and I lived right next door to a library, public library, and I was out and I looked across the street, and then I looked up in the air and I saw this oval shaped object, and I thought, how strange. Why is this object not moving? And I just got this really weird sensation like being watched, and kept looking at it, and it just remained there. At first, back then, Dan, I lived not that far away. I lived off of East 14th in Oakland, East 15th, and that about within a 5 mile radius, there was the Alameda Naval Air Station, and they used to I remember seeing the large blimps that would be coming close to our area. And so when I looked at that object, I thought, well, maybe it's a blimp. It's just I'm seeing the front end of it, but that thing never moved. It just stayed there. And so the
Wow.
next
Wow.
day, it was several days later. I was with my friend or a group of friends. We were playing near there on the playground, and then one of the guys pointed his finger straight up in the sky, and he said, "Hey, look, a flying saucer." I remember his exact words. Yeah, that's how he said, "Hey, look, a flying saucer." And I looked at his finger, and I tried to see if I could see it, and then I didn't see anything. However, I what I felt was, I bet this was connected with the object that I saw. So that that remained with me for quite a long time. That experience, seeing that oval shaped object there, and then seeing seeing my friend, the way he reacted, and I thought, no, there's a connection. So yeah, I've always been interested in the subject matter, and then years later, right before when I got married, my wife and I went on vacation, and we were uh, came across a newspaper article about abductions, and these written in these books that were being written about the abductions scenario. And one of them was Whitley Strieber, and he wrote the book called Communion.
Right.
And the other book was written by Bud Hopkins, and he wrote Missing Time. So I remember seeing these books at a bookstore in New Mexico, and I looked at them and I thought, it's something eerie did made me not say, so no, no, don't buy it yet. And then, but the images of that book stayed with me. So anyway, um, I went to I went to to the market to buy groceries, and I was standing in line, and then I turn over. I look over to my right, and there's all these books there, and then one was Communion, right? The soft cover of it, and so I grabbed it, and I heard these people in the back saying, "Oh, that's what they said. That's what they look like. Oh, and that it's real." And I was listening to those comments, and so I bought the book, and it took me a while to read it, but then it mentioned Missing Time, Bob. I mean, what was the name? Bud Hopkins, Missing Time, and so that's how I learned about MUFON, because they mentioned it in their book, and I thought, wow, maybe that's something that I need to look into. And sure enough, I found a chapter here in the Bay Area that met on Sundays, and people would gather, and so I made the effort to attend a meeting, and that was like a big shift for me. Um, it This whole synchronicity of events that happen. I've got to tell you, I know I have some pictures I wanted to share with you,
Yes.
with our
Yeah.
audience.
You want me to share that right now?
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to.
All right. Let's pull that up. Let's hit this. Well, let me first actually pull it up. Let's make sure I get it correctly.
What I was real fortunate when I mentioned synchronicity. It's like things happen for a reason, and or it's like you're almost being guided. And
There we go.
yeah, yeah. No, I wanted to
Oh,
get into
sorry.
that.
Which is the one that
Oh,
what,
sorry,
which?
the one. Go down to the very bottom where you see a picture of me. There you go. And that's me. When I went to Chihuahua, Mexico, we went to that area called Coyame, and that's inside one of the caves there. They have all these caves that you can visit. And so, and periodically, I had the opportunity of going to Mexico in that area on several occasions, and just to give the audience an idea of my experience. I had this revelation. I heard a voice. People are going to think, "What? So you heard a voice?" I heard this voice, Dan, and it said, "You're going to England." I said, "What the heck?" And I was, I thought, where did that come from? And then I thought, why England? And then it hit me, crop circles. I thought, what the heck? So I immediately talked to a friend of mine who told me, oh, yeah, there's a tour group that specializes in taking people to UFO hotspots around the world. And then I thought, oh, man, I got to check that out. So I inquired, and I I spoke with the lady. To make a long story short, I talked with the organizers of the expedition. I said, "Well, sign me up." Oh, by the way, sign me up for the other one too, the one going to Puerto Rico. And then I thought, how in the heck am I going to pay for this trip? And then it dawned on me, I'll just go to the credit union, pull out a personal loan, which I did, and
Wow, wow.
that's what paid for my trip. And then I had to go to a camera shop. I believe it was called Denevi's Camera
Yeah,
down there
Denevi.
in
Yep, San
Denevi. Yeah,
Lorenzo. San
in
Lorenzo,
San
right?
Lorenzo. And I went there, and the guy he asked me, well, "What kind of camera you want to buy?" I said, "Anything to take pictures of crop circles." And he looked at me and said, and then he said, "Well, look, why don't you?" This is what he did. He loaned he about the camera, and he gave me all the film. And he said, I'll make a deal with you." He says, "Take pictures and give me some pictures of your crop circles." And I thought, heck yeah. And then to top that off, he loaned me a pair of binoculars. They were huge and powerful. So when I went to England, this was another interesting experience that I had. Dan, was we were out there. We were doing our night watch, and then I was telling myself, and I put it out there, and I said, "Hey, if should you appear, do so because you want to, not because I asked you, but should you appear, I thank you." That's how I said it.
Wow.
When I said that, this ball of light came right up, and I'm looking at it. And I thought, "What the heck is this thing?" And I'm staring through my those binoculars are alone to me, and I'm looking through them, and I see this half dome shape object, bright amber color, and it started to descend, and then I said to myself, "Man, I wish they could bring it here so my friends could see it." And then so I had a whistle. I was blowing the heck out of it, so my friends could see it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 three lights came up, and they form almost like a triangle pattern. And I'm looking through the binoculars, and it's identical, flat on the bottom, and it had like this dome to it, like a bright orange amber color. And then one of the guys that was with us, he was a professional photographer, and he was going to videotape it. And as he's raising his camcorder, I'm looking through my binoculars, but I shift my eyes over to him, and then something told me they're not going to allow themselves to be filmed. And as soon as he raised the camcorder up, blip, 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 the objects disappeared. They just disappeared.
Wow.
And what what I found out was the next day we went out in that general same area and found this really complex video. I mean, I'm sorry, a really complex picture or
Crop circle.
this crop circle, excuse me, is really beautiful. It's shaped like a galaxy. It was mind blowing. And when we were walking into the crop circle, what I noticed was that the weed itself was actually elevated, so there was like a distance between the crop and the soil. And so when I pushed my foot down, it would crunch all the way down, and I saw all. It was so enormous and beautiful. Then I found out that the place where we were at the night before was known as Golden Ball Hill. And so these names, Golden Ball Hill, that was an ancient name for where these sightings of strange phenomena had been
Where the
occurring.
golden balls are showing up.
Exactly, and that's what I saw, And well, to make a long story short, I like to say that, huh? Well, I got along really well with all the people, but particularly with the owners of the trip. And he said, "Ruben, we like the way you work, and we would like to. How would you like to work for us?" And I said, "What? Yeah, you'd be able to go on these expeditions and help us as a guide or as a researcher, help us with putting together the trip." I said, "Yes." And man, that's another shift of that changed me in terms. That changed my life in the sense that it was like a boyhood dream. The fact of getting my adventures or getting these trips paid for, and the fact
Right.
that I had the chance to travel and connect. So I was able to go to England and Scotland at least 7 years in a row. We would visit the crop circles, take people to these um, different locations and connect with the researchers and that. And that was helpful because that later helped me with the research happening on my trips, and especially with crop circles and that. I have some more footage of you like this.
Yes.
We can
Should
see
I?
it right here.
Let me switch to the screen share, and let's. So
Yeah,
there.
if we can go back to the pottery. Yeah, no,
Oh,
yeah. When we stop right there,
Potter.
right there.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. Um, this was a when I went to Mexico. This wasn't part of the expedition. I was on a documentary with I believe it was the Discovery Channel, and we they did a series called UFOs over Mexico, and we met some people that said they found this pottery, and if you get closer to it, it shows three different faces. One of an indigenous, and the other two were very different. But one would definitely look like a gray, like an ET on it. I don't know how authentic these are, but that's a kind of interesting relics that we were uh, uh, shown by different researchers here in Mexico. And we can go to the next photo. Oh, that one here. Now, what's interesting, Dan, was when I came back from England. This was in 1995. Um, our MUFON group, had a camp out near Santa Rosa, and I had this. I just came back for my trip from England, and I was wearing this T-shirt, and it had these different diagrams of UFO crop circles, and one was a triangle with three rings at each end. And I went into the store, and a lady there kept looking at my T-shirt. She said, "Oh, we have one of those that just happened." I said, "What?" "Yeah, we had. There's a this thing appeared on the side of a hill, and it had supposedly this was when this picture here is when it was. If you can see the hill is brown, it dried, but but apparently it was when the event happened. It was a lot of grass. It was very wet, and the owner of the facility of the property allowed me to go in along with my friends, because I was wearing the T-shirt, and he kept looking at my T-shirt, and I
Wow.
told him who I was, and he said, "Well, come on in and you could look at it," and told me the whole story about his daughter being awakened by a flashing light, and then seeing this depiction of a triangle with three rings there embedded into the grass. And in the center of each of those rings were these small little crystals that were found. And she took
Really?
they found, yes.
And this was
And
also in the
so
Bay Area. Did I hear you correctly? This was
yeah, this
also
happened in the Bay Area. What I'm sharing with you.
and that's this image here. This is
Yeah,
actually a topographic photo or image. Is that what that is?
that's the ground. That's the actual photograph. That's the actual item. That it's you can see how dry the grass is, and then you can
Yeah.
see that the imprint of it. And it's like 100 feet approximately each side of the triangle and in length, and then the rings I measured those were about 50 feet in diameter.
What
So
year?
that
What?
was
Yeah.
1995,
That's wow.
and
And what type of crystals? I'm sorry. I'm too excited to ask you the next question without letting you finish. Go ahead.
yeah, they in that area. I forget that they found these what they call lake crystals, or that area has noted for I get there. It's trying to find the right wording for it. Has to deal with the geology, but they find these specific little crystals. At least that's what they thought. But the story itself was really quite unique, and the fact that this happened in '95, and crop circles are very rare, and especially here
In
in
the
the
Americas.
United States. Yeah, but they do happen. Really strange objects, really strange formations that appear. Then we had a series of formations that also were reported back in 2003 towards Vacaville. We can go and show the pictures there.
Yep.
Yeah, well, stop there. This is an area where it was a large cornfield, and what's really interesting about this picture, you can see like it looks like a worm. It's one, two, three, four, five, about 5 or 6 rings to it connected. And this thing is over. I measured it, Dan. It was like over 900 feet in length.
Wow. And this is in
And
Vacaville, California, huh?
yeah, going toward Vacaville in that. And you could see that there's a residential community right there, and there's a small airport nearby. And what we found out was that there was a guy, this man and woman that were in a small airplane. They flew over this airfield, and this thing was not there. It was not there. And then when on their return back, that's when they noticed this object. So it's within 3-4 hours, this object appeared. So we were able to go into it, and I was able to collect some samples and get collection of some of the samples of the corn and that. Man, and I took a number of pictures. And if we go to the next photo,
Yep.
this was the other one that this one here, this one really intrigued me. 2003, I think it's called Rockport, or again, it's near Vacaville in that area. This formation appeared in the middle of a wheat field, and the farmer was really cool. He allowed us to go in. When I walked into the thing, I thought, who the hell from England would come all this way just to do this? Because I was intrigued by the spirals and that, and it had some sort of an arrangement. They call it a diatonic scale, which is kind of relates to the music scale. Um, we had a gentleman who was a scientist, and he helped us also do some research on this. But what's interesting is that there were lots of people that were coming into the field, and so we had to hurry to do our research and be able to uh, collect samples and that you before the masses of people would walk into it start trampling the formation. But the farmer was so very cooperative. He said, yeah, that he would allow it. And then there was a group of teenagers that claimed that they made it. And so we said, well, how'd you make it? And how'd you do it? And then they said that they used their cell phone lights at night to being able to go ahead and put this together and create this. And then the farmer said, well, I'll tell you what, I says, I won't press any charges. In fact, I will invite teenagers who claim to have made this one to make another one. They could use the other part of the field and show us how they did it.
Right.
And apparently these teenagers were represented by a reporter, and that's where we got the connection. And so the offer was made, and we never got a response. However, they put it in the newspaper saying "Trop Circle resolved." It was made by kids and all that. That really pissed us off because we didn't get a chance to really tell the public exactly what had happened. And I
Well,
believe there's one more.
disinformation, man. They wanted to make sure that people were
Oh,
not too interested.
what was so interesting? I have a picture of it somewhere where there were Air Force personnel walking into the formation in groups. They were wearing uniforms, and we weren't that
Once
far from
again, Air Force. We got whistleblower today. Air Force. We've got Air Force for the Mexican government officials or military waiting for U.S. Air Force people to show up. Man, see, this is giving me, a lot more credibility to that David Koresh guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a real deal. Yeah, I believe I have another picture, right?
You
Let me
do
see.
really quick, just so that iSnot doesn't get upset with me because I missed one of his earlier questions. I just want to make sure that he gets it in, and then I'm going to go right to your other picture. He asked, "Has MUFON investigated Chris Bledsoe?" I just want to make sure I got that question in for him.
Yeah, he definitely is a very interesting person. I got his book and I'm starting to read it. Um, and he has had a number of experiences over the years. Very credible individual, at least in my eyes, and from what I've been reading and also observing. So um,
Okay.
there was a series put together. Apparently he wasn't happy with some of the results of some of the MUFON investigation that was being done. I don't remember who was involved in it per se, but over the years he's been interviewed on a number of radio shows and that and television. And his book, I'm hoping to read it and complete it. And yeah, it's amazing his contacts. That's a whole other aspect of the phenomenon that needs to be explored there. Maybe that hasn't been approached yet at the government hearings. Cattle mutilations, and on top of that, as well as with the abduction scenario.
Right. All right. Well, I want to make sure. I just want to read off a few of these comments that Robert Lawton shot off because he shot a bunch of them and we missed them. We're talking. So you really think there is human intelligence? I think he was joking with that one when we said found non-human intelligence. The reason they are taking their own camera and phone is because the Navy or branch of the government own any images you take on missions. He also said you would have more prove than they are telling the quartermaster. Will DR track anything near the ships and ship movement? A CIRC track anything in flight within 750 miles? The reason the Pentagon is not investigating UFO is they are black ops that are related to the same topic. And so I just want to read off some of those. Giovanni says, "What's up, Giovanni?" Says, "Those are awesome drawings when you were showing the drawings." And then Eric Morgado, brother Eric, says, "Awesome!" And it must have been when you were showing when we're showing your crop circles and other images. So I just want to make sure that people's comments are being
All right.
recognized and shared. So not to interrupt you, want me to go back to the other image you said that we had?
Yes. I think I had another image
because we are and I'm okay with going 10 hours with you, but we are 13 minutes over your hour just to share. So okay. I'm not doing it to you. Let's see. We have this image here. We have this image here. This image.
All right. There was. All right. At another time, what I'll do is put together more photographs together. If you would like to have me back and.
Oh, I would love to, because you touched on a few things that we haven't talked about. One is alien abductions. I think that's a big part of the UFO phenomena. I know we're supposed to say UAPs now, but I'm like you. I mean, it's UFOs. And then I would love for you to share some of this other stuff. And we're just touching the surface of Ruben Uriarte's knowledge and experience with all of these investigations and all of these sightings and research that have been done. So, God, dude, we could do it, 10 more times probably and all new information. Even the Tic Tacs, we didn't cover Tic Tacs or the UFO/UAPs that are capable of, breaking the barrier of air and sea. I mean, there's just so much to talk about, and this phenomena is being captured on camera. And so, it's definitely time for people to wake up and realize that this is real phenomena. There's no question about that. Real phenomena. The great debate is, who are they? Why are they here? Where are they from? So that is definitely open to debate. Could they be black ops programs? I'm sure today some of these sightings are black ops operations and vehicles and technology. We have our president now admitting that we have technology that this world has never seen. What does that mean? And then, of course, we have the ancients. And that's why I know in my heart and in my mind, Ruben, I would think as you do too, because we touched on it, is that if we just took to, current reports from the 30s or 40s, say Roswell till today, we can easily say or try to reason with ourselves or reason away the phenomena by saying, oh, it's our stuff. It's U.S. government. It's other world governments. But this phenomena has been reported for eons, since man has been documenting sightings in stone and in writing for thousands of years. This phenomena has been happening, and the human civilization has been documenting it. And so when you remove the ancients from the picture, sure, people can try to say it's just our government, it's just technology today. No, we cannot remove the ancients' oral history and records that they've put in stone. We must include that in our investigation and research. And when we do that, I think it's hard for anybody to say this phenomena hasn't been happening or isn't real. It's real. Now, we do still have questions, though. At least we do. It doesn't mean that the government doesn't know everything. And we're getting more of that information when Congress is having hearings and revealing the information you shared earlier and that we discussed, of them admitting, that at least whistleblowers admitting in the Air Force, and you've helped me make connections that the Air Force is highly connected to all of this, that we have non-human intelligent beings. I think a theory of mine is these non or biological non-humans are androids or robots. It's one of my theories that these are in fact, autonomous or AI. I'm just using these terms, advanced, thinking robots or beings, that we're recovering. And I think that these crashes, again, it's just a theory. I think these crashes are more of this advanced civilization providing technology to us. And that's just one of the theories. So I've done a nice little ramble, but I just wanted to kind of.
Well, good, great. Ed, we're dealing with a variety of life forms. Our universe is so vast, and we're. I think, Dan, we're really at a very pivotal time. It's not a question of if, it's now when. It's and now, as you mentioned, there's a lot more testimony out there and other connections with evidence. So it's been a pleasure being on your show, and we'll definitely appreciate the opportunity. And when we get back together, I'll put together a whole other
Yes,
segment of photos and that. And
that would be wonderful, brother. And I'm gonna throw one more thing in and then share. It looks like we got another question really quick for you before you go. We haven't even touched on the whole alien, demon, angel
that's
issue.
most
Because
interesting.
it's so interesting, because here we get into the topics of biblical and, once again, ancient spiritual teachings, and that there's angels and demons. What are those? Those are technically interdimensional beings, and here we have our government saying that's what we've got here, or at least some of these beings are interdimensional. So a topic that we could talk about more later in the future. So I just want to plant that seed with you to,
Yeah,
because I would love
I'm
to cover
reaching
that.
for a book that I'm just barely getting into, and it's called Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the Catholic Faith. And it's very, very interesting. I just barely got into it, but what I've done is I've been buying these copies and I've given it to each of the priests that are in my parish.
Wow.
And, because the Vatican is also behind this, there's a much more,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, but the fact that it just says extraterrestrial intelligence and the Catholic faith, well, I mean, obviously it involves other religions as well. I mean, it's a phenomena, but it's out there. People are really starting to research and how it's impacting man and society and all the different sciences out there. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so I Snot asked a question: how did he find working with David Paulides on the 411 documentary? Did you work with David on the
Oh, thank you.
411?
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to mention that. Um, I had the opportunity to get involved with a case with Washington State MUFON on a elk abduction case that happened near up in Washington, and the witnesses were primarily Hispanic and spoke limited English, so they needed a translator, and so I volunteered to help out, and as a result, we connected with the witnesses, and they some of them saw this object chasing a group of elk, and the object was small, and it picked up an elk, and without anything without any appendages. It was just like a force field. It picked up the elk and zip, took it right over a row of trees and straight into the sky. And the workers were terrified. They said, "Hey, what's to prevent this thing to come and take a pickup truck with us?" And
Right.
and these guys weren't your wouldn't make this up. It was the actual company, the timber company called Weyerhaeusen, contacted Washington State MUFON and said, "Hey, we have something really quite unusual." And so anyway, I was able to be a part of the investigation. Very credible, and we've had a lot of information. And then David Paulides, who has written a number of books on missing 411, on missing people, all the interesting information that's been coming out. I've read about maybe 4 or 5 of his books so far, and it's fascinating. But anyway, he started to put together a documentary of missing people that have also had encounters with UFOs and that were missing, and it also involved other cases that involved elk of all things. Where hunters were hunting for elk, and then they would never return. They would be missing, and so that's amazing when you have hunters that are either former law enforcement, they had military background, and they go out there in the woods and they don't know what happened to them. So anyway, David started putting together these different experiences, and then he got in contact with me and a couple of other researchers that were also involved in the elk abduction case, and so that's how I became involved in that. A very good documentary. I really highly um, would support. Yeah, highly recommend. That's the word I'm looking for. Highly
Got it.
recommend
Recommend to
for
watch it.
people
Recommend to
to
watch it.
watch it, to get it. Yeah, because it's a gives you a whole other perspective, and
Ice Knot has been telling me to get him on my show as well too. So I sent a message I think through YouTube. So maybe you can get me his email for season 2 of Dan Dillman Live. Because what folks don't know, I'm gonna let you know. This is it. This is episode 12. This is the wrap for season 1 of Dan Dillman Live, and I'll be working on season 2, and hopefully, enhancing, improving the experience. And I'm just kind of getting in the groove myself. And yeah, so just letting folks know that season 2 will be coming, but this is a wrap for season 1. We've got a question here really quick, and see, I just keep on not wanting you to go. But Louisa says, "Are you a believer in CE5?" And maybe Louisa, maybe that's a typo, maybe not. "My only problem is that I don't know how to meditate at all. Like to relax. I don't know how to do it. It's hard." Do you know what she's talking about? What is
yes,
CE? Is
that's
C?
C5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. That's
Ah,
where you
okay.
initiate contact. Yeah, I'm a proof of that. That's what happened to me. That the fact that I had put it out there and communicated with those balls of light. I mean, the fact that they showed up. That I said, should you appear, do so because you want to, but should you appear, I thank you. That's how I said it, and bingo! Look what happened. And
See,
there are groups of people. Dr. Stephen Greer has done a lot of research on that on the CE5. Um, we had the protocols. There's been other groups that have also done this. Mission Rama. These are the groups in Latin America. There's always groups that are going to uh,
Mount Shasta.
Shasta, where they do their CE5. Uh, the side thing about that is that you have to be careful because the more we're understanding about these energies, um, they could be harmful. As we from the different groups that I belong to one group called UAP Med, they're focusing on the potential injuries that could happen when people touch an orb, or touch an object, and then the result of some very serious health effects down the road. So my advice is don't, if you see something, don't touch it. Just uh, keep a safe distance and
Yeah.
observe or record.
Yeah. A good advice. Yeah, look at that. I was out of the loop on knowing what CE-5 meant, and I've had many CE-5s, close
As
encounters
far
myself.
as far as the meditation and that, I'm there. I would recommend go for her to continue doing her research on that, or even approach some of the CE-5 groups that are out there. There's different ways, different people. There's a whole story I got to share with you down the road, where uh, when I was with a group in Mexico, and we were doing the CE-5. We had crop circle sounds that we
She
used to
she
initiate
she
contact.
she just asked about that. So keep going. She asked, "Did you ever do the sounds, and which ones did you play?"
Yeah,
I
the
didn't get
trilling
to cut
sounds.
you in.
Yeah,
So go for it.
yeah. That was one of the protocols that you use to initiate contact by playing these sounds. And the origin of the sounds were picked up by some cameramen that were filming in the crop circle, and they picked up these mysterious sounds, which later was used by other crop circle researchers. So anyway, I was with the group, and we pulled straws, and basically the whoever got the shortest end of it, they were going to be the first one to go into a ship. And we all carried little handheld tape recorders. So we wanted to leave any information to, or our last will, basically, go ahead and say it there and put it on the ground, and do your thing. And that's when it hit me, Dan, was how serious this is. Because I said, would I take the chance of going into a craft not knowing that I'll ever get back? Well, what about my family and
Right.
all that? I mean, all that hit me right there because I selected and I was the first one to go.
Well, if I hadn't seen Rod Sterling's Twilight Zone, where they end up in the end, they're going to be the food of the aliens.
Oh
I
yeah,
probably would have jumped right on the ship and said, "Let's go, guys." But
the
Rod
third man.
Sterling.
Yeah. That's when it hit me. I said, "Hey, this isn't Mickey Mouse stuff. This is real deal
It
here,
is. Yeah.
and so we have to be careful." And so
Yeah.
I'm just fortunate that no, I don't know what I would do if one of these craft had settled, but man, I was hearing a lot of interesting stories when we were down there. This was close to the volcano down in Mexico City, in that area called Mount Popocatépetl, which is a large uh, volcano that's active, and a number of people have
and
seen
we have
UFOs.
and we have UFOs coming out of the volcano.
Oh yeah, over the
Witnesses.
years,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah, I've had some interesting experiences
They
with
could be
that.
traveling through inner Earth and coming up, through the volcanoes, or maybe who God knows. So many theories. I will
I
say
won't.
something. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to plug our website for
Oh,
those that are
please, yes.
interested. It's www.roswellbooks.com. That's roswellbooks.com, and people could see all the different books that Noe and other authors and myself included, that we've done
Yeah,
in our research.
make sure to pick up one of Ruben's books and support him so we can get some more books. I did want to tell Louisa, when it comes to the meditating that you're talking about, there are many ways to meditate, but I'll share something with you. The first and foremost way to meditate, at least to have your CE-5 experiences, is first removing fear. Because if you have fear, especially for these beings that are of the good, the ones that are there to show up and share with you that there is more to life than what possibly you've been told or the world shares with you, that the world is mysterious and full of wonder. These ones don't want to show up if you're going to be scared and frightened by their appearance. So clearing yourself of that energy of fear would be a great first step. So, there's a practice that the sages of the ages have taught for eons, and that is that you think and speak what you want to experience. And that could be that I am fearless. I am ready to receive, this divine revelation. You could speak these positive affirmations to yourself and start clearing any negative and fearful energy from yourself. And then that would can also start opening the door for the meditation that you seek and just relaxing and breathing, and having those thoughts. And then the thoughts and words are one part of the vibrational unity that is combined with your feeling, right? Because you can say, I am fearless, I am confident, I want this experience, but your gut could have that feeling inside, that emotion, that energy, of fear still. So you really need to unify that, or know that, take this energy, and through what I call, the spiritual alchemy, is combine these things into this core energy of receiving these experiences. And so anyway, that's just some tips from me on how you can start the process of that meditative state and receptive state to having these CE5 experiences.
Yeah, it's you never know until you try.
Yes. Few other comments for you. Louisa asked you questions. Would be are those? It's a little mixed up here. Are these orbs that we think are spirits be like orbs in the sky, or are they in one and the same? Uh, Ruben, do you want to ring in on that? I say yes, they could be spiritual in nature. Some could be physical objects, but some are definitely different dimensional type, multi-dimensional type of energy.
In some of the cases that I've been involved in now, I've been especially people that have been observing these orbs. Uh, they act in variety of ways. Where I had this one gentleman um, from Baja California, and he shared with me some amazing footage of an orb that came very close to him. It was observing him. It was following him, and um, it was as if he was being studied. And then you have other objects that are seen by people. Uh, they they don't have shape, but they are also um, primarily like energy, bright balls of light that come in and out of the ocean. And I've had a number of cases where people have seen these things emerging out of the ocean near Mexico and Cuba, especially on cruise ships. People that also are going to have resorts where they have their hotels facing the ocean, and sometimes they see some real interesting objects coming in and out. Once in a great while, they're especially with pilots, they've observed these spheres approaching them, um, coming close to their airplanes, and they're metallic, made out of some sort of metal. So they range in different forms. Um, One other book I would like to plug, um, if when it's a book called excuse me, UFOs over Mexico, um, encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, and this is all about the pilot sightings. Um, And what's described in this book are a lot of different cases that involve pilots, commercially and military, but that just gives you a snapshot of what's going on throughout the world.
Wow.
Same thing, yeah.
Isnot says, oh, he's talking to Louisa, I believe, if she can't see this, because if they're on YouTube and someone's on Facebook, but maybe they're all on YouTube, ask for a benevolent experience. Richard says, Richard Brower rang in and said the seeds that grow from the crop circles are super seeds. Have discovered that? Question mark. I guess he's asking the question. Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah, that's interesting. Whenever I went into the crop circle, I always collected the seeds from it. In fact, I have binders of pictures and the seeds that I collected from them, and had some really interesting dialogue with people who've said that these seeds um, have been used for healing, um, as well as well, I'm not sure if they tried to if they were planted, but yeah, that's something else that needs to be looked at. But I have collected them, and I do have them, and maybe one of these days I could share, do an experiment, and see what happens, especially for the length of time that I've had them.
Right. Awesome. Well, I want to tell people, first of all, thank you all for watching, because Ruben tried to get off of this call 40 minutes ago. And please, I want to, do a shout out and make sure you look for Ruben on Facebook as well. Besides going to roswellbooks.com, I believe. Is that correct, Ruben?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Roswell Books, where you can find, books that Ruben has authored and co-authored. But you can find Ruben on Facebook. Of course, he's still involved with MUFON. And I imagine that's MUFON.com, or is it MUFON.org?
Yeah, we have MUFON.com and also Northern California MUFON.com.
There we go. And so, folks, you can join there also. I imagine they're still taking reports. Of course they are. If you have a sighting or something, if you have images or video footage, to bring that up and share that with Ruben, or share that with MUFON. Also, you can find me at dandillman.com. I'm available for live speaking engagements, as Ruben is as well. And you can find me on Facebook, YouTube. Obviously, if you're here watching now, you have found us. If you're watching in the future, come find us. And we look forward to meeting with you guys again. Again, this is episode 12, wrapping up season 1 of Dan Dillman Live. Plus, it's the season to where I'm about to be out in the field doing some of the things I do with boots on the ground, investigating and researching, and so we'll be filming those adventures and sharing those as well. Ruben, any last words that you've got for us?
Yeah, going back to the CE5, that was more my own private research. It wasn't part of MUFON, but again, my story that I shared with you actually came out the Learning Channel. It's on YouTube. Yeah, they titled it "How UFOs Messed Up My Vacation." And if you look for that title, it's interesting. There's other stories of other people who've had their encounters, but my story that I shared about the balls of light and my encounter is in there in that
Wow.
segment.
So. Awesome. Well, Isnot says thank you, Ruben. Louisa says it was nice hearing from both of you, and thank you so much. And I just want to share great love towards you guys. Just bless you guys. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I guess that's it. Until we meet again somewhere deep within the cosmos. That's my signaling out. So God bless everyone. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Find us on social medias and stuff. We love you. We appreciate you. And we wish nothing but wonderful, good health, prosperity, and happiness.